there is a lot of talk out there about this thing about victimization. Victimization, victimization, victimization. And therefore I want to ask the people of Tobago. You will recognize that within the THA, there are Trinidadians, there are Tobagonians, there are supporters of the PDP, there are supporters of the PNM. You even have people who campaign openly against the PNM, past and present. You even had individuals who featured as candidates against the PNM, and none of them lost their work. PNM people, how are you feeling? You're looking good, and you're sounding good. Of course, let me recognize the political leader of the Tobago Council of the People's National Movement, a good woman, a woman with a track record of service to the people of Tobago, and who will be your next Chief Secretary, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine. Of course, your candidate for Bonaccord, Crown Point, Assemblyman Clarence Jacob. Let me also recognize a young man whom I've known for almost all my life. A man I grew up in church with at some point, whom I grew up in the gospel music fraternity with. At one point, he was considered the best drummer on the island until I took over. Of course, distinguished party officers, but I also want to recognize two individuals in the audience. Of course, Mr. Roy Jacob, a man I've known from since my early days in Republic Bank, a successful business individual in this community, and of course, he has produced a clone in Mr. Clarence Jacob. And Mrs. Jacob is here? Where is she? You see these masks? Let me recognize as well Mrs. Jacob. I did not see her sitting there. Of course, always supporting her husband and her family by extension. I remember her from the bank as well, always coming in from time to time to do the banking. I also want to recognize a very special lady, a lady I've known for almost all my life. I remember in my early days going to church at Maranatha. I used to enjoy the services the most when she was the worship leader. And I'm talking about Miss Miva Guy, mother of Downey Marcel. So there has been a transition from Ballyfay to Balizé. Funeral, I think it was the repast of the funeral. It was about, what, 4 or 5 months ago? And I whisper in her ear, I say, your prayer come true, girl. But this time she'll be praying for the Balizé. And therefore, come December the 6th, on the night of December the 6th, we will be singing. I'll leave that for the end of the speech. Of course, it is a pleasure to stand here this evening as the candidate for Buccoo, Mount Pleasant, Canaan. Of course, the official name is Buccoo Mount Pleasant, but that electoral district now includes almost all of Canaan. And therefore, I will simply want to say to you, the people of Tobago, and to the people gathered here in Canaan, Bonaccord, and the Crown Point, that by their fruits you shall know them. That is a biblical principle. But I want to be a little bit more specific and say to you that when it comes to politics and public life, it is by their record you shall know them. And I'm saying to the people of Tobago, examine the record, examine the track record of the leaders of the organizations in this campaign. Because I'm saying when you examine the track record of the leadership of the People's National Movement, it is clear that we have a track record of service, a track record of leadership, and a track record of performance on behalf of the people of Tobago. But there is a lot of talk out there about this thing about victimization. It's a very popular word in this campaign. It is a word I'm hearing a lot. Victimization, victimization, victimization. And therefore I want to ask the people of Tobago to examine the Tobago House of Assembly. And after that examination, you will recognize that within the THA, there are Trinidadians, there are Tobagonians, there are supporters of the PDP, there are supporters of the PNM, and I'm saying within the THA at this point in time, you even have people who campaign openly against the PNM, past and present. You even had individuals who featured as candidates against the PNM, and none of them lost their work. And therefore the question has to be asked, which of the leaders in this campaign really has a track record or a record of victimization? And I don't normally come with paper, but I bring 3 sheets of paper for you tonight. And the first thing I want to do is to read an article dated June the 11th, 2018, not long ago. And I want to show you it, so you ain't gonna feel I'm making up something reading from a blank piece of paper. You could say that, I ain't saying that. And the headline is, Duke ordered to reinstate 13 PSA workers he fired. And I like how the headline was specific, because it didn't say the PSA as an organization fired them. It said Watson Duke, the individual as leader of the PSA, fired them, and I want to read the article. The workers, well, piece of it. The workers are also to be paid their full salaries for the months of February to May, as well as an additional $10,000 each in damages. This was the order handed down at the Industrial Court on Monday, as the court ruled in favor of the workers who challenged the legality of their dismissal by Duke. Prior to their dismissal, and this is the important part, the workers had staged a protest outside the PSA's Henry Street office while wearing the bankers, insurance, and general workers, also known as Buccoo, t-shirts. In other words, they were wearing, I think it's green t-shirts instead of red t-shirts, instead of the usual PSA green, whatever the color is. So they were wearing Buccoo t-shirts, and Buccoo represents workers at PSA. The workers were protesting a number of issues, including poor conditions of the building, leaking toilets, a lack of a pension plan, and salary negotiations when they were fired. They had claimed that there was a lack of information forthcoming from Duke with regard to the PSA's pension plan, alleging that the pension plan was underfunded by more than $2 million. And you might be asking yourself, why are reading this to you? Because, of course, some of them in support of Watson Duke and his foolishness, will say to you that this is not a PSA election, it's a THA election. But I'm saying to you, one of the things you have to look at before you elect people to office is their previous behaviors and track record. Because, of course, these 13 workers in the PSA were dismissed because of the jersey they wore. They were dismissed for protesting, and rightfully so. But I'm saying to you, the people of the PNM, you must also remember Watson Duke's statements not too long ago, that if the PDP was to win the election, there will be no justice for people wearing red jerseys. And therefore, it is clear to all of us here in Tobago that Watson Duke has a track record for victimizing people based on the color of jersey that they wear. And therefore, all of us must examine that. And I'm saying compare that to the THA, where, of course, people protest from time to time. I've seen protests involving teachers and students. I've seen protests in front of the building up at the Division of Health. And I'm saying not one of those workers were ever fired or harassed by any secretary or any administrator in the Tobago House of Assembly. And therefore, it is quite foolish to be talking about the PNM being an administration of any contradiction that no secretary, no administration of any worker in the Tobago House of Assembly. Because, of course, you have situations where workers being wicked had to intervene on behalf of all kinds of people, some of them even PDP, kinds of things. And I'm saying people of Tobago. In addition to that, we must also examine their record when it comes to their relations with the public sector, and the family is employing too many persons. And I will also acknowledge that. Of course, it might be better to have a situation where the private sector employs more people. But if you have where else must people work? And of course, some of them will frown upon CPEP and URP jobs. But I'm saying in some cases next to their names, and therefore they could not have been employed anywhere else. And therefore CPEP and URP made the difference between some income and zero income. Of course, I can speak here confidently of success stories where people came into CPEP and URP with not one skill next to their name. But of course, as part of the program, we were able to upskill some individuals by providing training opportunities in a number of areas. And some of those individuals were able to pack their bags, dust their bottoms, dust their hands, and say to the people in CPEP, thanks, but are gone. I'm moving on to bigger things. I'm moving on to greener pastures. Tobago. But we must also build a more robust private sector. And I'm saying when you examine this administration's track, we have done significantly well. Because, of course, over the last 4 years, through grants and through loans from the Business Development Unit to the tune of $32 million over the last 4 years, the people of Tobago voted. And they decided that Orville London was doing a tremendous job, and they re-elected him. And then in 2009, they had the opportunity to look at the performance of Orville London. They had yet another opportunity to look at the PNM's performance during that period, and they re-elected them once again. And the same thing happened in 2017. So I'm saying, of course, the people of Tobago already decided that because we have the largest number of playing facilities, the largest number of sporting facilities, the largest number of community facilities, the largest number of cultural facilities per head of population compared to anywhere in the region, the people of Tobago will. So, of course, over the last 4 years alone, 1,585 small businesses were supported by this administration, had the opportunity to develop businesses. We wanted to ensure that they had the opportunity to pursue their business ideas. whether it be food business, whether it be businesses in the creative sector with garment construction, fabric designing, sewing, being a seamstress, whatever it was, we ensure that we provided support to those persons. And therefore, those job and go into business as some have done. But one thing you will never get from this administration, this PNM administration, a couple nights ago, you big and you have sense. You have the right to decide. And if you want to run your business on the side as a second political party, have a right to tell you that you must leave your THA work, examining their track record. So of course, because here we have, and all I will do is show you the headlines. Watson Duke is saying to put sandals on Carrera. Another article dated January 17th, 2019. Again, I'm not reading it, I'm just showing you the headlines. THA employing too many persons and people should be forced to work in the private sector. But when you had the opportunity to employ 2,000 Tobagonians, you're telling Butch Stewart to take a hotel and carry it to Carrera. Talk about sandals going on no man's land. I grew up in no man's land. I know no man's land is a small little peninsula. And the Buccoo estate upon which to build a hotel, after misinformation, until eventually we lost that. During the construction phase, almost 1,000 jobs, all kinds of foolishness, trying to discourage investment on this island. And I'm saying their track record when it comes to talk about developing Tobago and its private sector. Whether you want an administration with a track record which demonstrates where they can win instead of being weaned. Because I want to use two examples and I hope she work. Then came BDU. Asha came in, given by this administration. And I'm saying when we reopen the tourism sector and tourists start to flock to this island, on this island, and I will give you one more prizes. And they sell a product called I Support. Thanks to the business development unit for providing both finance products reach quite in Trinidad. And the last conversation I had with him, he was supported by a Tobago PNM, whose product, which is a Tobago product, is now possible. And that is the track record of private sector development. Victimization. And I will give you more examples, ply their trade. And of course, their trade. And of course, this is a, but tough Tobagonians led by this course, the discussion in their horns, examine that there is no other choice, Davidson, Celestine, and once you understand that we're in Market Square or maybe home in your house watching it virtually, and you will sing with one, and we have
December 6th, take no chance, protect your future, vote PNM.